Planned Parenthood treats the unborn like another form of currency, and yet some politicians still defend them.
Planned Parenthood serves a good function.
With the debt we have, should we even give them a penny?
We have to look at the positive.
Donald Trump is just plain wrong.
That's a new ad from Senator Ted Cruz in South Carolina portraying Donald Trump in a negative light, linking him with Hillary Clinton on Planned Parenthood. Now, for his part, the Donald did not hold back in reacting earlier this morning on ABC's Good Morning America.
Ted Cruz is a liar. I mean, he really just outright lies. George, he'll say whatever he wants to say. I actually think he's a very unstable person. I really believe that. I think he's a very unstable person. But I've never had somebody take something that you believe in and just say the exact opposite.
So all this name calling, how will it be perceived by voters with the primary coming up on Saturday? For more, we're pleased to be joined by the president of American Values, Gary Bauer. Gary's also the chairman of the Campaign for Working Families PAC, served as the former chief domestic policy advisor and undersecretary of education for President Ronald Reagan. He checks in from Arlington, Virginia, and from St. Petersburg, Florida. Pollster, consultant, all-around good guy, Matt Towery. Matt, of course, also the author of the book Newsvesting, Using News and Opinion to Grow Your Personal Wealth. Thanks to you both for your time tonight on Newsmax Prime. Matt, you're a guy who pays attention to polls and trends. Who's up, who's down? Where are people headed in South Carolina?
Well, I'm fortunate that my son's Opinion Savvy, which polled Iowa correctly, is polling in South Carolina for the Augusta Chronicle and some other affiliates. And so I get to see these tracking numbers every night. And he would shoot me, and I gave the actual numbers away, but I'll tell you generally how things are going. Trump is down just a little bit, but still substantially up. Cruz dropped a little bit over the last day. Rubio and Bush are virtually tied, but Bush is coming up pretty quickly because he's the target of Donald Trump. The rest of it is pretty much stagnant. You're seeing the undecided go down, so Ben Carson comes up a little bit. Kasich, by the way, is taking a bite out of Jeb Bush. And I don't know where Kasich thinks he's going with this campaign, because when he leaves South Carolina, he's going to run into just a slew of disasters in the SEC primaries. But for whatever reason, he's in there. And so Bush or Rubio are going to have to take some from Kasich in order to make it into second or third place.
All right, well, let's talk more about Jeb Bush. Earlier on this program, he joined me for a telephone conversation. Gary, Matt has Jeb trending up. Now, what do you see happening? Is this back and forth between Trump and Bush 43 and Jeb help to make Jeb more popular?
Well, I don't know. First of all, good to be with you, Congressman, this evening and to talk about the important competition, hopefully to pick the next president of the United States. Look, it's hard to sort all this out. As you know, I worked for Ronald Reagan. He was a pretty tough guy, got his way more often than not, but he was a gentleman. He seldom got personal in his attacks on his opposition. So I'm still trying to get comfortable with what's now passes as political discourse in the United States. Quite frankly, Jeb Bush is a great guy, a decent man. He was pro-life as a governor. I admire him, but I don't believe even now that Governor Bush fully understands the mood of the nation and how many Americans are almost in despair because of what they've seen happen over the last 7+ years, and not only watched it happen, but watched it happen with what they perceive to be very little opposition from Republican insiders in Washington. I think that's what's created Donald Trump, and I think it's going to bedevil the party for a long time until they figure out that they need to step up their game and start talking about a lot tougher about a lot of issues. And I think more importantly, they need to zero in on what's happened to middle America, to working class America. They've been decimated by a lot of policies, including some policies that Republicans support. And I think the trick here is how to stop Donald Trump, but in the process not lose his voters in November, because if the Republicans don't get him, they're not going to defeat Hillary Clinton or even Bernie Sanders.
Well, let's turn back to South Carolina with Matt. Stopping Donald Trump. You know, a lot of working people in South Carolina, Matt, but also that strain of loyalists, royalists, some would call them, to the Bush family. How does this all shake out?
Well, I mean, first of all, talk about gentlemen. Gary was a gentleman when I was just getting involved many, many years ago. So you're talking to one of the best. And I agree with so much of what he says. And we've talked about this many times, JD. What's going on, though, in South Carolina is very interesting. Either Donald Trump is a brilliant strategist or he's completely crazy, and we won't know until we get down the road. He's triangulated this race. He's going after Bush, which is bringing Bush up and taking Rubio sort of out of the conversation. And at the same time, he's going against Cruz viciously. And overnight, actually, among those who identify themselves as being evangelical voters, Trump was still winning substantially among those voters in South Carolina. I do think, however, the comment about Planned Parenthood, which I cannot imagine anyone would have said with any plan, I can't see any rhyme or reason to it, that if Cruz runs that ad and runs it hard, I can only expect that Trump's numbers among those evangelical voters will come down, because there's just so much they can take, and the word Planned Parenthood is just not in their vocabulary.
Well, we'll see where those voters go, if they go to Cruz or Rubio or maybe even Jeb Bush. Gary Bauer in Arlington, Virginia. Matt Towery tonight from St. Petersburg, Florida. Gentlemen, you have our thanks. And speaking of South Carolina, this important programming reminder: join Newsmax TV for our in-depth coverage of the Republican primary in the Palmetto State. We'll be on the air at a special time this Saturday night. We'll begin our coverage at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. We'll have results, plus the analysis you've come to expect from us. That's this Saturday night, beginning at 6:30 Eastern, only on Newsmax TV. After the break, the bromance between Donald Trump and Ted Cruz is over. What's next? We've got more after this.